Good evening, folks. Welcome back to the Castro Valley News live show. We are here, episode 46. And I think I say this every time we do a show. It's amazing the amount of shows that we've done. And thank you guys for making the show amazing. We will have a guest this evening calling in around 7:15, and that will be Castro Valley Unified School District Superintendent Parvin Ahmadi, and we'll be talking about the what, where, when, why, and how schools will be reopening here in Castro Valley. Like I said, that'll be happening about 7:15, and we got a lot of questions from you guys, and I want to thank you guys for being thoughtful with your questions and a lot of concerns in regard to the reopening of schools. It's a big issue on a lot of people's minds in Castro Valley, and hopefully we could dedicate hopefully 45 minutes at least getting some information and answers to your questions from the superintendent. In the meantime, we've got a couple minutes. Can we do the roll call? And oh wow, we already got a bunch of folks online. Good evening, John. Good evening, Matella. Good evening, Mary. Good evening, Kimberly. Wonderful evening to you, Bob. I'm going to tip my cap to Bob. This was actually Bob's suggestion to get some information and insight from someone with the school district in regards to the reopening of schools. MK is listening. Paz, I hope I say that correct. Netta is listening. Johnny is listening. Melissa is listening. Dennis is listening as well. Good evening to everyone. Like I said, Kimberly's asking about the bowling alley. I think what's going to happen in regards to the bowling alley opening is as soon as we are returned to the red status, I think that's when the bowling alley will open. I think the bowling alley is lumped into the category of gyms and indoor exercise. So as soon as Alameda County is in the red tier, then the bowling alley will open. And from what I heard, that's going to be probably within a couple weeks, hopefully. Knock on wood. That's actually my head, but knock on wood, the county can return to the red tier, and restaurants can, I believe, resume indoor dining at, I think, 25%, which is going to be great. And gyms can reopen with reduced capacity, and as well as theaters, which would be great. Hopefully the Chabot Theater can reopen at that point and get back on their feet. Clayton is watching. Hello, Clayton. Lori, good evening, Lori. Hua, I hope I said that right. Good evening. Let me see here. Sheila, good evening. Hello from Livermore. Hello back at you in Livermore. Anybody else want to be added to the roll call and get a shout out? Go ahead and post a hello or a comment or yeah. So going back to the red tier, Elda, good evening. Good evening, Linda. How are you? Thank you for tuning in. Bria is listening. Good evening to you as well. Scrolling around, making sure I'm not missing anybody here. Like I said, if you're just tuning in, we will be having Parvin Ahmadi from Castro Valley Unified School District calling in to answer some questions that you guys posted yesterday, I believe it was. Heidi, good evening. Jinx, good evening to you. I love your name. That's a I've never seen anyone named Jinx before. Jeanette, good evening. Another Michelle, good evening to you as well. I hope I meant, did I say hello to Heidi? Good evening, Heidi. Jinx is listening in Philadelphia. That's cool. Wow. Good evening, Kelly. Good evening, Bethany. I'm hoping I'm not missing anyone. Did I say hello to Jeanette? Good evening, Jeanette. Bria has a question, and we will get to your question as soon as the superintendent calls in. She should be calling in around 7:15. I've got about 8 questions from you guys lined up, and I'm sure the superintendent has some other questions that she may have pulled from the comments to let you guys know what's going on with the potential opening of schools. Good evening, Rachel. Good evening, Cheryl. Good evening, MK. Netta is asking, what will the focus of your questions be for the superintendent? And the focus will actually be your questions, which is the reason why we put a call out for questions from you guys for the superintendent. Good evening, Rachel. Good evening, Jessica. And we're getting into some questions already. Kind of ahead of time. And like I said, at about 7:15, we'll have the superintendent calling in. If you're listening already, Parvin, just give me a call right now, because it seems like the people are super interested in hearing from you, and hearing some answers to the questions that they posted. Um, I, Good evening, Rachel. I don't know if I gave you a shout out. If I didn't, there you go. Good evening, Cheryl from Southern California. Good evening to you. And like I said, what we do with the live show is audio only. There's no video, so if you're getting a black screen, it's there's nothing wrong with your computer. And again, I'll just let the roll call go for a couple more seconds. Netta is saying she appreciates how hard our district is working. We are so lucky. This has got to be uh, super, super difficult for all school districts everywhere to make that balance between wanting to get students back, and also definitely wanting everyone to be safe. It is not a choice or a decision or a situation I would want to be in. Brenda is thanking us for hosting the program, especially tonight, in regards to this very concerning issue. Thank you, Brenda. You are appreciated as well. Tiara has a question, and thank you, Clayton, for answering that. Tiara had a question classified people being on about classified starting before certified, and apparently classified employees have, according to Clayton, classified employees have been on campus since August. So like I said, at about 7:15, Superintendent Ahmadi will be calling in, and we'll get some answers to your questions here. And I'll throw this out there one more time. Superintendent Ahmadi, if you are listening now, feel free to call in anytime. We've got a lot of people interested in hearing from you, and anytime you'd like to call in would be fantastic. Because there's good evening, Eunice. How are you? Hope you're doing well. And just bear with me. I'm scrolling through the comments, making sure that I'm not overlooking anyone who had a question or 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 just dialed in to do involved in the roll call. As you can tell, I can't multitask if I'm looking through if I'm looking through the. Okay, we've got a call coming in. Good evening.
Hi.
Hey, I'm doing good. Are you?
Sosa?
Yes. Is this Parvin?
Yes, this is Parvin. Yes.
Great, Parvin. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. As you can tell, there's a lot of people with a lot of questions. So, did you want to just start giving us a status report where we're at and what's happening?
Sure. I can do that. I really encourage everyone to. I know I have sent a letter home to all families. We actually did that last week. But all the information about the phases and dates and all sorts of other important information is posted on our website.
Okay.
When you go to the front page, it says, reopening, and it's there. But I can actually just kind of sum it up as the phases that are starting with transitional kindergarten and kindergarten on March 17th. Then the week after that, on the 24th, would be grades 1 and 2. And March 29th, which is right before spring break, then we would have 3rd through 5th grade and preschool coming back. And then March 29th, that same week, we also are planning on orientation for 6th and 9th grade and 12th grade, to just kind of getting them transitioned in and going over some things. And then April 12th, our secondary students will be coming back. So that's basically the phases and dates. Also, as far as all the requirements we have in place, our reopening plan is complete. We have PPE. There's been a lot of training for families in elementary and secondary. We'll be starting that as well to prepare everyone, the students and families, for returning to in-person. So that's the plan, to offer in-person instruction based on those phases. And then I'll just wait for the rest of your questions. Is there anything else you want me to cover first?
No, that's how are you guys doing with dealing with this? Are you guys, I know you guys are working long hours. Do you want to touch on that really quickly?
Yeah, I would say that our team has worked very, very hard for months on end. And like you said, it's pretty much around the clock. Everyone, I can't thank everyone enough for working so hard, for all their efforts, for every single person in our school district. Our custodians, child nutrition, classified members, office staff, teachers, principals, everybody. And we've had, and I also know that the families and the students have been working very hard. We've basically had just wonderful partners with families who are doing not only their work and their jobs and supporting their families, but supporting students with their online education as much as they can as well. So just lots of work, but we're excited. We're hopeful. And we have really, we've always wanted to be reopen school as safely as possible and responsibly. So these things take a little bit of time, or a lot of time sometimes.
Yeah.
And then we have to follow all the requirements that we have from the state and the county.
Right. I actually did have a quick question. Does the situation with Gavin Newsom, does that financial incentive, is that going to affect our school district at all, if any?
Well, actually, everything from the state impacts us. So,
Right.
as you know, Governor Newsom actually proposed the plan. Then it was for discussion for legislature, and they did come up with a really solid plan to reopen schools with some requirements and deadlines and timelines and funding. That is to be voted on Thursday, but
Okay.
we're pretty sure it's a plan that most people have agreed to or are supportive of, and that includes reopening schools, reopening elementary first, and then secondary also reopening and supporting students who are more vulnerable, and also there is funding attached to it for all school districts. But basically, we're all required to offer in-person instruction based on the criteria that they have for us.
Perfect. So let's just jump into some of the questions that were posted recently. So
Sure.
Laura is wondering, why have private schools been open to in-person learning, but public schools haven't? Why the difference?
Yeah. So really, public schools and private schools have they have different restrictions, different number of students, different restrictions and requirements. Comparing the two to each other is, might be misleading because when you talk about the number of students, we have 9,300 students. We have certain restrictions about how many students can be in class. We also have, processes and procedures that we have to go through as public schools. So just two different entities. I think, we can also look at even public schools in various areas where they have been in red for a while versus some of the counties such as Alameda. So just two different entities, two different systems.
Okay. Lindsay was asking, why haven't they recently polled the parents to see how many would prefer to remain virtual for the remainder of the year? If enough kids in each class would like to remain virtual, why not do the AM cohort virtual and the PM 2 hours in person? Then students can remain with the same teacher, curriculum, and classmates rather than essentially switch schools with a few months left to go. This would also give kids who might not pass the health screener because of a cold, allergies, or exposure a chance to attend class virtually. It seems like this option would give everyone what they want and would work logistically.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one, we are probably one of only two districts that have had a virtual option for all of our families who chose to be virtual all year long. So that is unique for Castro Valley. Other school districts, as they're going in, are having a lot more issues trying to figure out who goes where. So that option has always been for families. The other piece is principals have communicated with staff as we try to work on reopening after winter break, that if anybody had decided not to return to in-person, that they could ask to be placed in the virtual academy. And we have actually a list of folks who have done that. So we have options. And, I have to just say, it's when you were talking about planning these things are not as simple as they look. They're complicated. There are tons of things that we have to think about. So that actually, the parents have the option of saying, we're offering in person, but if they didn't want to come in, they are able to be in the virtual academy. But to ask, to have now move everything around and have the teachers who are actually in person, they or have been doing virtual, ready to come back in person. We have certain number of teachers who have already been in the virtual academy. So we have to look at our staffing and our ability to actually staff every one of our programs. So my response to that is there is an option for virtual, and that's our virtual academy. And we actually have a list of families who have chosen to do that.
That seems to be one of the big questions that kind of has come up in a lot of from a lot of folks across town in regards to will there be options?
Yeah, so that is the option. If they, the parents have been given that option, and the communication has been ongoing. So we had asked them to let us know. We still have a couple of people who are telling us now, and we'll take care of that. But basically, we are offering in person for the students and families who, who actually did not want virtual academy from the beginning, and now we're allowing them to go and join the virtual academy if they don't want to come back. Now, one of the things that's going to be different in elementary school, the purpose for having the AM/PM is that at this age, we felt that students really needed that everyday contact. It's going to be in person. They need that everyday contact with the people. That's the reason. For secondary, the AB model is different. So the students would only be in school for 2 days, and the other days, 2 days, they would be virtual. And now, as I have heard some of the questions, and secondary folks gotten a survey and some information that is telling them that basically for secondary, while teachers are teaching, the students at home will be getting the same instruction virtually when they are not in the schedule to be in person. So basically, the number of hours that we had for secondary has now increased because of this, the ability for us to be able to do this, which took a long time to put in place. And I so appreciate the work of our teachers and administrators and staff to come up with this option. So people could ask, well, why can't we do that for elementary? Because in elementary, the reason for having this was in elementary school, the way teachers teach is different, the way students learn is different, and the model that we have for elementary really is very different than secondary. The need in secondary is very different than elementary when you're talking about instructional practices. So that's what we have. What I want to say to folks, though, I think a lot of times I'm being asked, like, is this what it's going to look like in the fall? What are we going to be doing? And in response to that, I'll just say we don't have any additional guidance from the state or the county. We're waiting for that. And as soon as we get that, we will be able to put more information out. But I want to say this, we are committed to do the absolute very best we can in the spring with the idea that as a goal, that our goal for the fall is to have the maximum time, maximum number of hours and minutes that we possibly can, and expand the learning time for in-person as much as possible with the restrictions we will have in place. So we're hopeful that things will be much better. We will have less restrictions. We will have a better way of having actually more time in school in person. That would be the worst case scenario, right? Because we're all hoping that everything goes back to normal. But at this point, we don't know that. If things turn out to be perfect and the state and the county allow us to go back in person, full time, everybody back, that's great. That's our dream. However, if that doesn't happen, we are committed to increase time to do everything we can to plan to improve what we already have even in the spring. Just like we did in the last spring was different than this fall, next fall will be different than this spring. So our goal is to have our students in person as much as possible as we move forward.
Parvin, may I ask, are you calling from a cell phone?
No, I'm calling from a landline.
Oh, okay. For some reason, we've got a lot of noise coming in. It must be my phone. Thank you so much.
Do you want me to try cell phone?
It probably. In the interest of just keeping the conversation going, let's just continue.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I do have a quick question that I wanted to ask. What is the temperature or the feeling from teachers, instructors in regard to going back to in person or the hybrid?
Our teachers have been just wonderful. They've been working really hard. They want to see their students. They're just as anxious as the students and families to have students in. I think one of the great things that I can report out is vaccination. Even though it was not a requirement to have vaccination in place as a part of the requirement to have it. I'm going to change phones and see if this is better.
Okay, thank you so much.
Is this better?
Oh, that's much better.
Okay. All right. So basically, we have been working really hard with the availability of vaccines, and at this point, I would say over 72% of our teachers and staff have been vaccinated or have the first dose done or appointments. And every day we have more. We basically, as of today, we have enough spots for vaccination and appointments available for every single one of our employees. If they, for them to make appointments and go. In fact, it's been really wonderful to have the support of, many of actually our folks have gone to the one that FEMA has set up in Oakland, some at the fairgrounds, and we actually have two other places who have asked us to support us as well. So every single one of our employees will be able to get vaccinated, have already been, or in the next couple of weeks will be done.
That's great.
So we're very excited about that, and I think that just gives people some a level of comfort that really would make it a lot easier for us, for everyone.
And is the every vaccine for the teachers for certified and non-certified?
Say that again.
Is the vaccine for all staff, or is that just for teachers?
Yes, all staff.
Oh,
all
great.
Staff, child nutrition, classified, every single individual in our school district is qualified, and every single person will have an option to have the vaccination. Like I said, 72, when I looked at the chart that we have, 72% have already either made an appointment, had their first dose. Some are getting their second dose, I think, this week and next week. So we're in really good shape. And because of the support of Alameda County Office of Education, Alameda County Public Health, FEMA, and now La Familia, we've been able to have enough spots for everybody. If those who haven't made an appointment, we've sent out information the last couple of days with lots of information and special codes for them to register to get their vaccination. Yeah, everybody, including our substitutes.
Wow, that's awesome. Getting back to the questions from folks on the page, Tammy is wondering, what power do teachers and admin have for enforcing masks and other protective measures? How many violations before a child or student gets disciplinary measures? If there's an altercation at school where masks get pulled off during a fight or whatever, who is responsible for intervening if it means potential exposure? If a teacher contracts COVID, likely from returning to school, who covers their health care costs? What if they pass it to others in their home? Who pays for that care? There was a couple questions in one there.
Yeah, lots of questions.
Yes.
That one. All right. So I'll try to remember as much as
if you need me, I can.
One reason about. Yeah, that's okay. No, I think I remember. And if I miss anything by the end of it, you can ask me. So as far as masks go, the students are required to wear masks. There are, there is actually a paper that that families are signing to acknowledge that. And if a student in our classrooms, in a regular classroom, doesn't wear a mask, they cannot be in class. So that's a requirement. And there will be bumps in the road. We will deal with that. We always start from a place of understanding. However, we're very strict about these requirements, and in order to protect all of our students and staff. And if there are the example of if there's an altercation and whatnot, we have administrators on site, and they're the ones that will deal with any issues around that, just like we are in person. So we can think of a lot of things that could go wrong all the time, and I understand the angst, I understand the concern, but I want people to know that we have put a lot of measures in place to support our students, to make sure that we keep everyone safe. Things may happen, but we're ready to deal with them, and we'll do our absolute very best to follow all the restrictions and support our students and families.
Bob is wondering if there is state funding, which may be true. Would it be possible to add 3 weeks to the calendar? Ending in May is new as compared to the third week in June, as was the traditional.
Yeah, so adding days to the calendar is actually quite complicated because it depends. The number of days that our employees are supposed to be working during the year is actually already set based on our instructional calendar. What we have done is we have summer school. And we have expanded summer school to have it right now we have it at 3 elementary schools instead of 1. So we've expanded summer school, but what we are looking at are any other measures that we can put in place moving forward for next year, not about the calendar or adding or year-round, because those are complicated. When you go to year-round school, there is a ton of just process and procedures you have to go through to change calendars. So it's not that easy, but you can add other programs. You can have summer school. You can have intervention after school. Those things are possible, but adding like days to the calendar that's already set is not something we can do at this time.
Well, that eliminated the next question. Someone was wondering if there was any consideration to moving year-round school, and you just totally answered that, which is great.
Yeah.
Touching base.
Going to year-round school is quite an endeavor, and just the calendar actually is pretty hard to change. Because teachers are required to work 180 days with 5 days of preparation and actually professional development.
Would that require an appeal or some sort of paperwork with the Alameda County Office of Education, or what would be the process?
So the process to go to year-round?
Yes.
It actually requires a lot of communication with the community, surveys, just making sure that also working with our bargaining units. Year-round school used to be pretty common in some places, but it's really not as common in areas around us at all. So it's just you have to. It's almost like getting school uniform.
Okay.
Maybe even more complicated because there are rules and regulations about what you have to ask and how you actually solicit information and what kinds of things you need to put in place. But honestly, if we're talking about learning loss and the issues that students have, we need to get them in person as much as possible and extend that time, bring them in and put in place additional resources, additional, times for them to learn during school, after school, before school, like summer school. So we'll be looking at all of those things.
What are some of the things that you're hearing from parents? Is it more so parents wanting their children to come back, or not, or are there specific examples or stories that you're hearing from parents?
Yeah. So it's both. We have families who feel comfortable coming. We have families who absolutely want their children to come back. And we have families who really are choosing to stay virtual. I would say we have a lot of folks who have noticed, and we have, that this pandemic and not being in person has had tremendous negative impact on students, for almost every student. Some students might actually be thriving being online, but even academically, but not just academically, but socially and emotionally, children need to be in school. And that's why there's such a push from the county, from the state, from the governor, from the federal government to open schools back up. Because not just academically, but socially and emotionally, kids need to be in school. They need to be connected to one another. They need to be connected to their teachers and staff. I think those who have not been comfortable sending their children to school or are choosing to stay have it's their prerogative, and we are supporting them in that endeavor. But we have a lot of students who need to be in school and get the support they need and the connection they need.
A couple of people are commenting, is there a way that they can donate PPE, hand sanitizer, or any of those items? Is that possible, or?
Yeah, we actually are not going to ask for any donations because we have certain criteria that we have to have for PPE,
Okay.
for masks, for sanitizers and things like that. If we get to a point where we do need some support, we will ask families. But I just have to say we've been very fortunate to get all the materials we need. We also have had support from the state to purchase PPE and all of that. But I won't say that we'll never need it. And if we do need that, we will absolutely appreciate it. We appreciate the offer, and we'll let people know what if and when we need any of those things. But thank you. That's very gracious.
That's our community right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
We're truly blessed to have so many amazing people in our town that'll just really go to bat when and fill a gap when there's a need.
Yep, I absolutely second that. I've said it over and over again. We're fortunate to have the community, our families, our parents, but also community members who have had children in our school or don't even have children in our school have been so extremely supportive, and we're grateful.
We are
absolutely just grateful.
Shelley is wondering, some high school teachers have been telling students that even if they go back, they can stay online with their regular teachers and schedule. Is this true?
Yeah, so for secondary, that's what we were talking about. It's called concurrent instruction.
Okay.
And we're not the only school district who's doing that. If you look at some of the school districts, first of all, in Alameda County, so far, I believe there are 3 school districts that have actually have dates to go back, and we're one of them. And most of the people who are going back for secondary, they're doing what we're doing for secondary, and for elementary, they're doing AM, PM. So for secondary, yes, that's what I was mentioning. We are going to, our teachers are wonderful and are going to do this. They basically teach at the same time as they're teaching the students in class. The students at home will have the same thing, so they will hear. They will be on Zoom, so that the students at home are getting the same lesson, which means before we decided to do this, or we found a way to do it, we actually would have had students who are in person with the teacher, listening to the teacher, getting the lesson, and then when they would go home, they would be completely asynchronous. But now they don't have to. They will have one asynchronous day where for secondary it's on Wednesdays, but on Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, they will be able to do whether they're at home or at school, they will get the same thing.
A couple of people.
So it's true. The teachers are telling whoever that was, the parent who said that, yes, they are absolutely right.
A couple of people have asked, and there's some questions about summer school. Will there be a summer school? Will it be distant?
Yeah, summer school will actually be in person,
okay,
with all the restrictions in place, which means this is why we need more space, we need more school, we will have more students, and students will be identified based on assessments that are being given, that have been given throughout the year, and as we move forward. So there is summer school for elementary and secondary will be in person, but there is a part of secondary that will be credit recovery that would be online. So it's a mixture of both, but most of it is in person. In elementary, it's all in person, and middle school, it's all in person. More information should come to families whose children are going to be offered summer school.
Okay. At this point, where does the district stand in regards to graduation?
So graduation, there was an email that went out from Castro Valley High School describing the process. They have committees that are working on graduation. We will, in all cases, absolutely do the one piece that we are going to for sure be doing, regardless of whether we're in purple or red or orange or yellow, is the virtual graduation, so that all students will get to see everybody actually be acknowledged and recognized. But in addition to that, there is information online as well of what we would be doing if we are in purple, if we're in red, to ensure that we have some way, shape, or form of in-person recognition. Obviously, if we are in yellow, we could have a lot more people, not a lot of people, but we can have not everybody. What we know is our graduation isn't going to look like 2 years ago.
Right.
Where everybody's at the stadium and all of that. But we are absolutely, the group is planning, the high school is working with the committees to plan accordingly based on the tiers to make sure that we offer the maximum opportunity for people to have an in-person portion of graduation. But we will definitely do the virtual one in addition to any of that.
What is the status of the special education curriculum? How will that go forward?
So if you look on our website, for example, when we start phase 1, TKK, we've also listed which classrooms in special day classrooms will be in, and we'll continue to phase them in just like all the other grades. As far as students who are in special education, but their services are resource services and other services, they will be provided those services as well.
That's great. I'm just looking through the comments here to find any other questions. Were there any other questions that you or Amy called that you felt were worthy of going over?
Let me look really quickly. I think you asked most of them.
Yeah, there was a lot of, there were quite a few great questions and a lot of kind of conversation about the topic itself.
Yeah. Let's see. What are plans for supporting mediation plan for the summer? We covered that. I don't know if I have any more on here. But we're excited. I have to just say we're very excited to have, to move into the next phase of our school year.
Yes.
And again, I want to assure people that as we get more guidance from the state and county about what fall may look like, our goal is really going to be to improve, to really look at maximum time in person as safely as possible. So there's still a lot to be determined. I'm grateful that the state, the governor, and the legislature have really come together to support us, to push for reopening, but also provide some funding for school districts to, not just for this year, but really for looking forward to next year, to put some additional resources and support services for students. So we're very excited about that. And around June, we will be talking obviously a lot more about the fall and some of the things that we're going to do from now on. Once we get students back in, we'll be starting to look at next fall, work with the county health department to get more information from them as well.
And coming next fall, will it still be offered for folks to do the distance learning, or will that change?
So the CVVA, which is the Castro Valley Virtual Academy, has always been in place for high school, and we actually have quite a few students who are interested in doing kind of a hybrid, some classes at the Virtual Academy, some in person. As far as middle and elementary school, if the conditions continue to be that we cannot be fully in person and the pandemic is over and they actually announce there are no tiers and things like that, then we'll be back to normal and we'll have to take a look at any other options. But if we are required to still have some hybrid or not be fully in person, our goal will be taking a look at our CVVP for elementary and middle school and make sure that we have an option for families. So, if we're not fully back to normal, we definitely will need to be looking at that to have that option for families. If we're back to fully open, that's a different story. It's been a great option for some kids. We'll just have to see if we can actually continue for years to come to have two options for folks.
Sarah is asking, please clarify, we are in red even though the color on the dashboard is still purple.
So the color on the dashboard, we are not, so right now Alameda County is still in purple, but that's because the county, and actually at the state, they have, before you would be in, basically you would have qualified as a county to be in red for 1 week before they would change the designation. Now it takes 2 weeks. So right now we are in purple in Alameda. We're expected to be in red by next week. Right now, I believe today it was like 6.3 per 100,000, which is less than where, which looks like we would be in red, but we have to wait for the state to actually change that designation, hopefully next week.
Right, that's what I heard. So the change in the tier has no effect on the district's plan, correct?
Well, the change in tier, right now we are not opening until March 17th, and what we are hearing, we are expected to go into red next week. The one other thing that the county has changed is that school districts, before they would say 2 weeks in red, then they changed it to 5 days, and now it's 1 day after a county is in red.
Bria is asking, are younger kids required to wear masks like TK or kindergarten?
Yes, and we've actually seen, I honestly have seen like preschoolers wearing it. I have to say, I know that there's some folks who are worried about students not wearing. I am so encouraged, by the way. First of all, we have the most amazing students in Castro Valley.
Oh, we do.
But
Yeah.
kids are good. They actually listen. They follow directions. They are conscientious. So, yes, they will be wearing masks.
That's great. I had a quick question. Will there be another public meeting or another board meeting leading up to the opening, to the return?
Well, we have board meetings every other week where I spend a lot of time updating. Folks come and give us, share comments during public comment for that item. So next week again, we will have another board meeting on Wednesday. We had one last week. So every other week, we have included an item to update on just, reopening, COVID, and all of that.
Okay. And we're nearing the end of the hour, and I thank you so much. But and there's a couple people who tuned in late. Could you just gloss over the opening plan one more time, if that's not too much trouble?
No, it's not. It's no trouble. But please go ahead and go online. It's right on the front page. If you click on reopening, you will see it. But March 17th is TKK. March 24th is second and third grade. First and second grade, and the combination classes for second and third. March 29th is grades 3 to 5. And March 29th, also, we are doing an orientation and transition for 6th grade and 9th grade and 12th grade. You'll get information on that if you have children in those grades. And April 12th, after spring break, we have 7th and 8th and 10th and 11th and 12th grade back. So all secondary back by that time.
Leading back to the high school graduation, if possible, put the word out. We'll definitely share all the graduate photos again. That was
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
We actually got graduates from San Leandro and Union City and Fremont High. It was awesome.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, our seniors have really lost, their entire, up to this point, they've had a really difficult time, 12th grade, and as a senior, you have, certain expectations, and, it's an important school year. So that's why we're excited about having them back, even if it's for just a few weeks, and obviously for them to transition in and seeing them graduate. So before I end, I do want to say that a lot of work has gone into this. I am so grateful to our students, our families, our staff, every one of them. But I'm also very grateful to have a governing board that really is so thoughtful and patient and flexible, and has really supported all of our efforts to make sure we bring our students back safely and responsibly as possible, and is always encouraging us to be innovative, to be thinking out of the box, and to really, I've been saying to folks, we need to reimagine what school looks like. We've learned a lot. Nothing could have gotten us to this point where we are using technology as much as we are. And now when we go back, there are things that we're going to be doing differently than we did before. So that integration of technology and innovative instructional practices that have come into play the last few months will just be better for us as we move forward.
I agree.
We'll just be better for it.
Definitely. Parvin, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This is definitely something that's on a lot of people's minds, and the more information that gets out there, the better. And thank you again so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for being patient as I switch phones and things like that. So
no worries at all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There you go, guys. I hope I got to most of your questions. I'm sure there are other questions, but as time unfolds, we will see we'll probably get a lot more information about what's happening. We have expired the hour. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank everyone who posted questions. Thank you to our sponsor, and I miss them, Forrester.org. Thank you guys. Stay safe, be good to each other, and we will see you next Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Stay safe. Have a good evening.